Welcome Gemini to your in-depth monthly forecast for April 2025. It's a complex month, it's a month with lots of different competing energies. It's a pleasure to work with you. If you'd like to work with me directly, please check out my testimonials below for my one-to-one consultations. You can also have a video reading with me too, please see below, or please take advantage of my unique special offer. My combination reports of your life roadmap and also your 12-month transits give you an opportunity to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far, but also get a much more intimate understanding of them, but how you can work with these in terms of the upcoming months, the next year, in order to time your moves really succinctly, when to hold off and when to go for it. And there is 30% off. Please see the link below for more. We need to be mindful in your case of the role of your ruler Mercury. Mercury starts this month in retrograde. Retrogrades can cause complications, as you know, frustrations, crossed wires, but as the month begins, Mercury actually is in a very constructive link to Venus, the planet of relating, but that too is in retrograde. But they're both located in the sector of ambition for you. So anything to do with your connection to the world at large, any influential people you meet, any meetings you have, any presentations or interviews you may have to go through. So choosing your tactics, which can be quite a Mercury approach, is going to be key, but also understanding the potential opposition to your plans will be important as well, and that's because of the role of Saturn. Saturn is in this part of your chart as well, and it's going to be closely aligned to Mercury and Venus, particularly Venus, throughout this month. And Venus can be about money. It's not just about relationships, but whether it's with your boss, whether it's for people who work for you, whether it's for clients, if you've got your own enterprise, you may find that people make much more exacting demands upon you, and you need to steel yourself to be ready for what they may require. But the energy of the solar eclipse at the end of last month, which pours its way into this month, and also a brilliant alliance between fortunate Jupiter in your sign and the position of the Sun, also through the first 10 days, suggests if you're very clear about what you're trying to achieve, but you're also understanding that if you do need to deal with a boss or an authority figure who has a particular approach, the way you cultivate or manage that discussion could be critical to whether you get a good outcome or not. So one of the things you will need to guard against in the early part of this month is a sense of frustration, because Mars, the planet of passion and assertion, which had been tracking backwards from the 6th of January through to the 24th of February, that continues through to the middle of the month in the part of your chart that's to do with money, but also values. And if your values or approach to finance doesn't align with, say, a potential employer or an organization that you're having to exist within at the present time, it could really frustrate you if you've got an idea, a big picture that you want to achieve, because everything may go a lot slower than you'd like. And Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde too, can prompt us to think about things, recalibrate and reset before we go again. And if you're unprepared to do that, you could encounter quite a lot of resistance. So don't necessarily believe that you can't achieve your goals and ambitions, but you may have to be particularly tactful, tactical, but also manage any frustration that could come up. The ace in the pack, to be honest, is that Neptune, the planet of inspiration, forges a superb link to Pluto throughout this month. And Neptune's asking you now to be as factual as possible, even if you feel really inspired and passionate about certain ways of approaching things. if there are gaps in your knowledge or the information you're sharing, you could find that people scrutinize those things in a much more intense way. That said, Mercury goes direct on the 7th, which certainly helps. But you also have, throughout this month, a opportunity with Venus combining with Saturn to bring in the support or experience or knowledge of someone who actually has got a real understanding of whatever it is you're trying to make progress around. That could be someone in your family or a friend, if you're open to their advice. If you want to do things on your own terms, just be aware that some of the encounters that you experience may be a little stifling. So if you're someone who has an ability to think outside the box, that may be more difficult. So things could go slower, they may not go exactly to plan, you may have to be flexible, and if it's involved in money or values, there could be a clash. And if you work in an organisation where you're just not enjoying it anymore, it's possible that you may decide that you want to change job. However, by the 13th, we do have a full moon, but it's a full moon that's in your sister air sign of Libra, which for you is very much to do with showcasing your individual talent. It can also be about being quite joyful and playful. On the other side of the heavens is the sun in Aries, but that is very close to Chiron. If you feel that certain friendships and associations are not quite working for you, the area that could really see the tension creep in is where people do have very different values to you. But then someone may feel that you're trying to impose your worldview on them. But some real tensions could come up about money around the heart of this month. That said, Venus does go direct on the 13th, and Mars moves on the 18th in what seems initially a very comfortable position for you. It moves back into your third house. It was last there on the 6th of January. The third house and the host of Leo is very prideful, very confident. The third house is about ideas and mirrors the energy of your sign. It's just that Mars is immediately in an opposition with the power broker of the Zodiac of Pluto, and this can make you very willful about expressing your philosophies. It's just that the Sun moves the next day into a very psychological part of your chart. If you push too hard, you may be surprised by the amount of pushing back that comes your way in the second half of this month. Because Mars, although for you in the third house sounds good, don't try too hard. If you've got a motivation or a passion about things that are important to you, that doesn't mean to say you shouldn't continue to work with them, but just be aware the Sun moving into your 12th house could bring up some opposition which up until now may not have been manifested in a particularly upfront or verbal way. So the sector of hidden enemies in traditional astrology is where the Sun moves into. And because in week 3 the Sun squares to Pluto, squares back to Mars, so that's a very, very tense set of influences, and it feeds into the new moon of the 27th. So although Mercury, your ruler, goes or emerges from its post-retrograde shadow on the 26th, I don't think it's going to be a panacea. So the second half of this month could be quite rocky, and you may find that other people will be just as passionate as you in articulating how they see something. It just depends on your unique situation. If you can deal with the frustration and perhaps the more pedestrian responses as you see it that you get from others early in the month, perhaps even later too with Venus and Saturn in contact, and don't get too exasperated, you can keep the lines of communication open, and remember that's where you're at your best. And you have a unique ability to pivot into different people's viewpoints and understand things in lots of different vivacious ways. But having the sun in the 12th house is a very psychological area, and you may feel that if there is some conversation going on and people are not agreeing with you, it could be quite wounding to you. So you need to be protective in the second half of this month, because there is part of you with Mars in the 3rd house opposite Pluto that won't want to take a backward step if it's a point of principle that you're discussing. One of the other things that could happen with that aspect, however, is it could push you to do something that's much more to do with moving around. So if you have wanted to get away from it all, go on a holiday or a break or a vacation, that could be a real push to take a positive action to get something booked. So as the month draws to a close, Venus returns back into the sign of Aries. So that's a really good change. It's not going to come out of shadow until the 5th of May, to be honest. But I feel that even if there have been tensions or are tensions around your professional hopes, goals and ambitions, try to keep in mind the things you have in common with people, not focusing on the things that you see as making you different. So essentially, the part of you that is very ambitious is very much to the fore this month. It's just the pace may not be going at quite the speed that you would like. Then later in the month you can become even more trenchant in expressing your viewpoints, just at a time when you could actually feel psychologically much more sensitive and not quite so in your power. So if there is any discussions or conflicts or disagreements towards the end of this month, do choose your battles. Don't try to win every single disagreement, especially with the internet. And obviously we can encounter people with very different viewpoints from ourselves. I think it's important this month to understand the things that are worth preserving, the things that are worth being patient with, and the things that are worth defending. But focus your energy on what's really important for you. Please do check out my new website at www.patrickarundell.com. There are so many amazing new additions to this.